Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Adrian Russell from Next Level Training Strategies, and it's been wonderful to speak with Adrian a little bit before this event, and it's wonderful to have her with us now. Her session is Selecting Technology to Deliver Learning and Development, a practical guide. Now, just a little bit about Adrian. She brings over 25 years of frontline experience in learning and development, technology selection and implementation. And through her career, she's evaluated hundreds of vendor solutions across every major learning technology trend. So we're looking at early HTML courses to Flash, from mobile learning to today's AI-powered platforms. So it's a wonderful way for us to bring together everything that we've heard today through Adrian's session, with much more learning to come, of course, during this discussion. So Adrian, over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And welcome to everyone. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. And I'm coming to you from the great state of Texas in the United States. And I was just sharing with Caroline how I appreciate that this is truly a global conference. And I know that even though it's a global conference, we come together with a passion that is similar, with one heart of let's help people learn better. Let's help them do their job better. And I appreciate that so very much. One of the things that I have noticed over these years in L&D is there are many disciplines within the L&D field. And it seems like if you're really great at L&D and you love L&D, one of the assumptions is you're great at all of it and you love all of it. And that's just not necessarily true. Someone might come up to you and say, hey, what's the latest and greatest technology trend that's going on in L&D? And you don't know, because for 6 months or more, you have been heads down on projects and you have not had a chance to breathe, much less do any research on something that may or may not actually happen for you. So you don't necessarily know. The first time that I was asked to help in the selection of a technology for our training department, I was both thrilled that, hey, I actually get a say in this, and terrified because I didn't know what it was I was doing. So if that's you, I just want to say, don't worry about it. You've got this. We're going to step through a couple of terms, tools, and strategies to make this easier for you. Now, we only have 20 minutes, so I'm not going to cover every single detail that you might encounter in this global environment. But what I will do is give you a few tools that you can use, some terms that you can learn, and some strategies that you can employ immediately that's going to help you save time and money in your technology selection process. So let's start with the first one, because this one feels like is the most intimidating to most people as they start this process, and that is the business case. Don't let it intimidate you. The first time I heard it, I thought, what on earth is that? I didn't go to business school. I don't know what a business case is. It isn't as challenging or complex as it might sound. A business case is simply, why do we want to do it? What do we think we're going to solve with this? And do we really want to make this decision to go for it? So with the business case, I created this one-page template just to keep it simple and repeatable, but it is necessary in this process. So on this one-pager, you're going to find 4 things, and that's it, just 4 things. And the first one in this process is going to sound familiar to you. What are we trying to solve for? That's what we do with all of our training courses. We're going to do the same thing with purchasing technology. What are we trying to solve? What is the problem statement? Where's the gap? What is our need? Then we're going to put our imagination cap on, which all of us have because we're in training. And we're going to say, what could technology do to help solve this problem? Imagine it. I imagine this, and you write it down. Now, if that were to come about, what do you think the value would be to your company or to your team? What is it actually worth? Now, here we're talking about monetarily. What is the value worth to your company or to your team? You're going to take that amount, and from there, you're going to ask for a budget for this technology. Now, not necessarily the whole amount that you imagine you might be able to save, because sometimes our imagination gets carried away with us. But let's get a realistic amount in there. Let's put it in a budget line, and let's ask for it before we do any research going into our selection. Let me give you an example of how easy this is. Let's say that your problem is about your new hire program, and only about 60% or less are actually completing the program. Well, this has resulted in a much longer speed to proficiency time than what is expected. And in fact, some of those new hires are leaving the company early. They're leaving. They're not getting their training, so they're leaving. If you were to imagine how technology could solve this problem, maybe there's a technology that does all three of these things. It keeps better track of the people who are going through the program. It sends out automated reminders to make sure that they stay engaged throughout this entire program. And because of who your audience is, you're going to make sure that it is more accessible from a mobile device. So if you were to get all three of those things in place, you believe that you could change your completion rates for your new hire training up to 85% perhaps. And if you could get 85% of your new hires to go through the training program as prescribed, you could probably see a reduction in your speed to proficiency by an average of 2 weeks. And in fact, you anticipate that you would lower that turnover rate by about 10%. If all of that were true, then you can expect to see about $500,000 in savings. Fantastic. Who's going to say no to that? Well, you do have to get the technology. So you need to use this information to come up with your budget. And this is a recommendation, and this is an ask. And I would say don't ask for the whole $500,000, because we do sometimes imagine things more than they actually are in reality. And I would also say give yourself some breathing room, and let's make it a realistic amount. So we're going to ask for $200,000 for the first year. Now, there may be a different price that you're going to ask for the next year. It will likely be lower unless usage goes up, and that's how the pricing goes. So there's a first year. This is out the box. This is integration, everything that we need to implement this software. This is how much I'm expecting. Can I have this budget, please? Now, what you're asking for is the green light. This is to keep you from spinning your wheels looking for technology that you're not going to be able to buy. So you ask, this is what our business need is. We need this. We can solve it with that. Here's what I'm expecting as the value, and here's what I'm asking for as the budget. Do I have your go-ahead to find this technology solution and to move forward with it? That way you're not wasting any time in the process. It can be fun. You get to see all the videos, and you get to see all the demos, and you get to learn what's out there, but you don't want to waste your time because you have plenty to do without that. This is going to help you do it. Now, let's say you have your go-ahead from your budget owner, and you're ready to search. And the first job is to find a vendor. Good news. Vendors very often find us, and I'm sure you have been in this position before, where a vendor has reached out to you and said, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You need it in your company. Don't you want me to come give you a demo? It happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes you find the vendor on your own, and that can be going to conferences such as this, or going to their expos and looking at the different booths. No matter what it is, here's some best practices for you and a strategy that I want to share with you. First is, I like to keep a list of my business needs that I'm trying to solve for. Whether I've gotten the approval for the budget or not, I like to keep the list. And then that way, when a vendor comes to me, the first thing I do is bump their product up against the list and say, does it fit? And if it doesn't, it's an immediate, thank you very much. This looks great. It doesn't meet any of our needs currently, so I'm going to keep your name to the side, and if our needs change, I will contact you. It's pretty simple. And by the way, vendors appreciate it when you don't waste their time either. So don't think you're being nice by indulging the conversation and keeping it going, because they will keep it going as long as they need to try to get a sale. But if you know you're not going to purchase it, don't waste your time and don't waste their time, and they do appreciate that. The next thing is keep your business case handy. And if you do find a vendor that sounds like it might meet your needs, send them your business case. This is high level. This is not a use case. It's a business case. Send it to them and say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is what I'm thinking is going to happen, and how technology might solve this. Do you believe that your products or services will help meet this need? And if they say no, again, they will appreciate knowing this up front. And if they say yes, then you can go ahead and engage in conversation and see if it truly does meet the need. Now, evaluating that need is going to be critical in this process. Does it make a good fit? Is it a good fit? So we're going to evaluate that fit. I want to say up front that evaluating a fit is not the same as evaluating a vendor or a software solution. They can be really good at what they do. I mean, excellent. And it's still not a good fit for you. So we're not talking about judging the vendor or judging the software. We're talking about judging whether it's a good fit to meet your needs. So the first thing that you ask, and this is a go, no go. This is a yes or a no. Does it meet the needs? If the answer is no, this is not a good fit. You need to close down the conversation. But let's say that it does seem to fit. Now let's go to the next step. You need to evaluate how it fits into your existing systems. Now, when I say existing systems, you might have automatically thought about technology systems, and I do include that. I also include your workflow, your processes, your policies. Will it fit in to what you already have in your ecosystem? Now, if the answer is no, that does not make it a no-go. That doesn't mean you're not going to go with them. It means it's something to consider as part of your cost. Will it create silos? Will it create double work? Do I need to shift things around? This is part of your decision-making process when you're looking at new technology solutions. And then the next thing is, will it grow with me? Again, this is not a go, no-go. This is an acknowledgement and a determination on your investment into this solution. It might be a great solution for your current needs, and that's perfect. But you know in the back of your head, well, the company's doing this, or I really want to extend our content library. Will it handle it? That's what you need to know, and then you can decide, do I want to invest in this short term while other things happen? Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I'll go ahead with it short term. Or it's a great solution because it will scale with us. It will grow as we grow the way that we're anticipating. Now, this last one, this is a term that I was not as familiar with, and so I'm going to share it with you and talk about what it actually means, and that is the total cost of ownership. And let's go ahead, and it's going to have its own slide, because it's important to recognize it. When you meet with a vendor, you're going to get a pricing sheet, and they're going to go over, here's what our price is for this, different services, different packages. That is not the total cost. The total cost of ownership includes the costs that you may have internally for implementing this software. So even software that is not directly in your system or in your computer, it's out on the cloud, that's okay. You still may need to get it through the firewall at your company. You may have to have data go back and forth. So there's all kinds of reasons where there may be an implementation cost on your side to software that doesn't seem like it should bring any kind of cost. So consider all of the implementation cost associated with this software before you go forward. The next is you have someone internal who will use this software. How much will it cost to train them on this software? That's another part of the cost of ownership. And the last bit that you may not think about, so I want to bring it to your attention, is maintenance or storage fees. Now, we're talking just globally a technology solution. There may be technology solutions that this does not apply to, and there are technology solutions that this will apply to. So rather than just assume that it doesn't, ask the question so that when you're making your decision, you are able to make it an informed decision about the total cost of ownership or investment into the solution. Now, this is one that most people do not like to talk about, and that's due diligence. But due diligence is a necessary part of this process. And it comes natural to us as trainers, as learning and development professionals. We do due diligence all the time. What's unique about this are a few areas where you might not think to ask about or to look into. So I've brought those to your attention today through this checklist. The first one is references. This is not like getting a reference for a job. This is getting a reference for investing with this company that you're looking at. And that's what this is. When you sign a contract with them, you're investing into the solution. So you want some references, and not just any references. The best references to look at will be those who are a company that's the same size as yours or a similar size as your company. If it's a small company, you want to know that that vendor can work with small companies and the constraints that you have. If it's a large company, same thing. There's just different constraints that are involved with different sizes of companies, different industries within the company. And you also want to see that this company that you're using as a reference has the same type of problem that you're solving for, and they use this to solve that problem. So you want to see some similarities there. You don't want something that you're comparing apples and oranges. You want to be as close as possible to comparing the same, and that you know, based on their testimony, that it's going to work. The next is implementation. Now, you can get some insights into implementation from your references, but you also need to ask your vendors about implementation. What does that process actually look like? What will it take? What will it require? And how will they support you in the process? Some implementation is easy. There's very little that they need to do, if anything. Other implementation is so complex that the company actually hires another vendor just to handle the implementation process. So ask about that, again, depending on what type of software you're selecting. Now, this one, financial stability, is one most don't think about. But again, you're making an investment on behalf of the company to pick this solution. You need to know that that solution is going to be around for a while. And there are a lot of startup companies out there right now that are saying, hey, check out my technology. I've been in the industry for a while and I went out on my own and this is what I created. And many applauds to them. It is wonderful and we should support it. What you need to know is, am I willing to support that and invest in that, given that they're a startup? Or maybe they're not a startup and they've been around for a while. One of the keys you can use to help you with that determination is to ask for their roadmap. What are they planning for the future? If all they can do is focus on surviving right now, that's a higher risk. If they have plans for the future, it's a lower risk. So just take that into consideration as you're looking at your different vendors. And then the last part is about content ownership. And this again depends on the type of solution you're looking for. But there are times when you want to be able to own that content that is created through their solution. You want to own the source files. You also want to own the production files. What is the difference between that? What does the contract allow for? Take a look at that and include that as part of your solution. Now, I'm going to take just a breath before we start this next one, because I want you just to grab that in. Now, there are two terms that you need to be familiar with that you may not, or you may think you know what it means, and it means something very different. So let's take a look at those two terms. This is going to help you in this process. The first one is a proof of concept, and the second one is a pilot. And you may have heard of these terms before used in different contexts. So let me tell you what it means and when to use these two in your procurement process. We'll start with the proof of concept. A proof of concept should be limited in scope. The purpose behind a proof of concept and when to use it is when you're like, you know what, I think this vendor might be the one. I like what they have to say. I like the people. I like the demos. I think it might work. I just can't go and say 100% that I believe it. Yeah, I'm just not 100% there. That's when you ask for a proof of concept. Not at the beginning of the conversation with the vendor. Towards the end, when you're thinking about signing on the dotted line, ask for a proof of concept. Now, a proof of concept is limited in scope. It's limited in time, resources, and money. Some proof of concepts can actually be done for free by the vendor. They will offer it for free. And sometimes not so much. They're going to ask for thousands of dollars. The difference between the two is the complexity required to create that proof of concept. So if you're going to go into a system and it's very complex, you can't expect a vendor to offer that to you for free. Now, they still might do that if they're convinced that you truly are considering them as the finalist for this solution. So if they think you're just still looking, you're just still shopping, they're not going to want to spend a lot or invest a lot into a proof of concept just to be knocked out of the category, even though it worked. So keep that in mind. Limited in focus, limited in time, limited in resources, limited in money. The other one is a pilot, and these are not to be confused with each other. A pilot is about, I want to test my implementation strategy. So a pilot doesn't run until you've signed on the dotted line. A pilot is about, I have already decided which vendor I'm going to go with. This is it. This is the vendor. But there might be some technology glitches along the way. So I want to test for that. I'm going to run a pilot, and we're going to troubleshoot with the pilot. They know we're troubleshooting, and they're going to give us the feedback. The other could be for your audience and their adoption rate and whether or not they're going to agree to this easily. Does it really do anything more to the process flow that you didn't think about? That's when you run a pilot. A pilot is longer in scope. It does include more investment from your end, and it's not a decision-making process. It is part of your testing of your implementation. So don't get the two confused. You're not going to run a pilot to decide if you're going to buy the software. You run a proof of concept, not the next one. And yeah, you know, Caroline, can you come in?
I can come in. Can you hear me, Adrian? Yeah,
I can hear you. Absolutely. You know, I just have a summary slide that I want to get to and share that with everyone, but I want to give you some time to respond or to interrupt if needed.
Fantastic, Adrian. Thank you. So we have just a few minutes left. I just wanted to get a couple of questions in, if I may.
Absolutely.
This has been incredibly helpful. And actually, it's the agency of the learning and development team that, are able to bring this business case to fruition. What happens when a senior leader is pushing for a particular vendor or technology that doesn't align with the identified business needs? What is your guidance on that?
Well, no, that's going to happen, right? So they're going to go to a conference, they're going to hear about a vendor, they're going to come back and say, this is what you need to do. And I've experienced that way too many times. What I love to do is to offer a yes and approach. And that yes and approach is really about, that sounds great. I can see why you're interested in them. How do you see them solving this business need? And sometimes they'll agree, and sometimes they'll automatically go, yeah, you're right, that doesn't solve what we're looking for now, but still talk to them. Okay, let me get the information and we'll keep them in the back pocket for later when we do have it. So there's that. You don't say no. You don't say no. Senior leader, you're not going to tell them no, but you're going to say yes and. Yes, I recognize it. Yes, they're a great vendor. Yes, that's a really fancy tool. Here's our budget. What do we want to prioritize to?
Fantastic, Adrian. Thank you. And we've got a question in the chat from Cody, who has asked, how do you best advocate for the non-quantitative reasons to adopt a new technology? Is there a place for that when creating a business case?
Yes, and see how that works? Yes, and you can almost always convert it to a monetary value. And if it is an engagement issue, you're bringing in some engagement for you can convert that into better engagement means this, which means that, right? So you can almost always convert it into monetary value. And what I have found is sometimes the business will help us with that. And in fact, sometimes they come to us with it. They'll say, your training is horrible, there's no engagement, or whatever the case is. And as a result of that, you're costing us this much money every year. Well, let me fix that. So now you've already given me my budget. I can fix that for you. It's going to cost this amount. Do you want me to fix it? And you can do that. Remember, it is an estimate. It is not hard financial science, that we're not accountants that have to report on it. It's an estimate. So don't get too hung up on it. Don't get too afraid of it. Just make your estimate and move on down the road.
Thank you, Adrian. And there's another question around if you've got a small R&D budget, or you're an organization with a small budget, what advice would you give to those kind of situations and those colleagues that are working out what to do and where to start?
Absolutely. And that's reasonable. None of us have an unlimited budget, right? So what I would recommend is be strategic. Go back to your business case. Look at the biggest impact that you think technology can make on your biggest issues. Start there. Make that business case. Sometimes additional areas may even pipe in some money for you to get it. But start strategic and small and build from there. Don't think you have to redo everything all at once, and you don't have to get the biggest and the best solution. You have to be strategic about it.
Thank you, Adrian. And we have a very short amount of time left. So I'm just wondering, on your summary slide, was there a particular tip that you want to share with us just before we have to close the event, unfortunately?
Absolutely.
There's never enough time.
Well, I guess the biggest tip is, besides get your business case written, because that's going to be your driving force, just like your objectives for your training, is the fanciest tool with the most bells and whistles is not necessarily the best solution. The one that meets your business needs within your criteria is the best solution for you.
That is wonderful, Adrian. Thank you.